Hey everybody, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Bullseye Hiring Hangout, where we discuss how you can hire the right administrative staff and train them to make the most out of your business. So today we've got a guest on that's going to share how to hire correctly virtual staff and your needs with that. So as always, I'm joined by Kathleen Metcalf. And Kathleen, why don't you explain a little bit more in detail about what we're going to cover today and introduce everybody to our guest?
I will. Thank you, Scott. So Bullseye Hiring is a company that focuses on hiring real estate administrative professionals that work in your office. And sometimes having staff that works in your office is not the best solution for where your business is, which is how I came to meet Michelle. Michelle and I met, I believe, on LinkedIn, and we connected, and we have exchanged newsletters and articles and talked on the phone, and we exchanged prospective clients back and forth. And when the opportunity came to have Michelle join us on this hangout, I thought it was the perfect educational opportunity to help agents be able to look at their business and understand what are the resources and the choices depending on what stage of growth your business is in. So, Michelle, tell us a little bit about your business, and then we'll get into some of the topics.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on your show. I'm so excited. Our company specializes in helping real estate agents all over the country manage their transactions from contract to close. Once they get it pending, once they get the ink dry on the contract, they send it over to us, and then our coordinators will sort of lead the process, making sure everyone stays informed as we move through, never replacing the agent, but complementing them and letting them, freeing them up so they have time to do other things to grow their business.
Wonderful. And so the point Michelle and I wanted to make sure we make is that Michelle's company does pending to closing.
Yes.
Virtual transaction management. They do not have virtual assistants that do marketing or listing coordinator roles. That would be a different business, and we may be able to talk about that with another guest sometime. But this is the pending to closing process. So give the agents a little bit of framework. How long have you been in business, and what sort of areas of the country do you work in usually?
Sure. Thank you. Well, let me start with how this business even came to be. About 11 and a half years ago, I had just been working at a law firm. I'd spent 10 years at this law firm where we only did real estate transactions. So we did closings after closings after closings. And I figure in that lifetime, I did about 10,000, 15,000 closings. Moving forward, I know we saw a lot of people in those doors. It was a very, very busy office. So I went to the attorney that I worked for because what I was seeing was I would have a real estate agent that would come in for a transaction. We would do their closing. Maybe they would have 2 or 3 going at once, and then I wouldn't see them again for a few weeks or a few months. And then this would happen again, and I started noticing it because some of them, I thought they were my friends. You know, they were friendly, and we had a good time together. So I asked them, are you seeing the title agent down the street? Like, are you spreading your business around the Central Florida area? Every one of them said no. What every one of them said was my business is sort of like a roller coaster. I get a deal or two under contract, and I have to work really hard to see that deal from contract to close, that I don't have time to focus on the leads that I'm generating. And so they sort of, you know, and what they were saying was they had to start over right as soon as that contract closed. Yep. And I asked them because, you know, I guess I was naive enough to ask the question. I said, why don't you hire somebody? I mean, it seemed like common sense to me, hire somebody. And every one of them said there was that fear of being able to make payroll. They didn't feel they were good managers. They weren't sure they were going to be able to, you know, put them in their office and you know, keep them busy enough. And so I asked the attorney I was working for at the time, I did some research and came up with this idea, and I asked the attorney that I was working for if he wanted to do this with me, and he said, no, it will never work. So I won't tell you his name, but 11 years later, we're still here. It's been an interesting 11 years. Obviously, my crystal ball did not tell me that a couple years after we started, the market was going to go sideways, upside down, and do all the somersaults that it did. But what that did do was it showed us, it gave us time to create systems and to really make those the best systems we possibly can. And it allowed us to really show that what we do helped, because there were so many agents that we worked with during those times whose businesses didn't go down during the tough times. They had to make more phone calls. They had to work harder.
Right.
But their businesses didn't go down. Some of them, their businesses grew.
Yes.
And so we use that as an example that even in tough times, when you have somebody helping to support you to do all of the things that we do, which most agents aren't great at anyways, you can grow your business.
Yes. That's wonderful. What a great story. And yes, you've been on the roller coaster already.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
I want to jump in real quick before you get on to the next topic, and just let everybody know that's watching that this is a live interactive hangout. We do have a Q&A app available. If you have any questions for Kathleen or Michelle throughout the hangout, go ahead and submit your questions there, and we'll make sure they get answered live on air.
Thank you. So Michelle, you're based in Florida. Do you have a territory where you work?
We primarily work the answer to that is yes and no. Most of my coordinators are based in Florida. We have certain coordinators assigned that are familiar with maybe a state or two. So we work in about 18 different states. I've got a couple of West Coast clients, but primarily our business is the Southeast, up to Maryland, Virginia, over to Texas, and in that neck of the woods. We're always growing and expanding, and always up for the challenge to take on new business. We recently picked up a couple clients in the Wisconsin area, and we're super psyched about that.
Nice. And are some of, or all, or any of your transaction managers or transaction coordinators have real estate licenses, or do they need it?
You know, some do. I have a broker's license here in Florida. My license is, I like to say, just a referral tool. I don't sell houses. I happen to love my weekends way too much to be doing that. But what we do is strictly administrative. It's all admin. So we don't prepare documents. We don't negotiate anything. We're not explaining documents to someone other than pointing them out to where to sign it. What we're doing is sort of taking sort of like a nurse role to the transaction and letting the agent be the doctor. We're making sure the patient, in that analogy, gets to the appointments they need to get to. We're making sure that the doctor gets the information that they need to have an intelligent conversation with the patient. But we're letting the doctor, you know, make the diagnosis, prescribe the treatment, and definitely deliver the bad news if it comes up. That's not our thing.
That's an excellent analogy. That's very useful. Thank you. So let's talk about some of the phases of business, because we also want to get to talking about how you build the working relationship once you have a virtual TC. But let's talk about in the phases of business. And I wanted to bring up that Jolene McDonough, who is the founder of System Success, who's also an account manager with Bullseye Hiring, she does what's called a right now analysis with companies, where she goes out to their real estate office and she looks at their financials, their operations, their staffing, and helps create a roadmap for them to grow and be profitable. Okay. And she highlights that there are, let's say, 3 phases of business where you're in that 1 to 25 deals, you're in the 25 to 50, 75 deals, and then you're in the 75 beyond deals in terms of transactions per year. And it's somewhere in phase 1 getting to phase 2, between 25 getting into the next realm up to 75 transactions a year, that an agent usually starts to need help. The average real estate agent in the United States, according to the National Association of Realtors, sells 12 homes a year. So producers that are in the double digits of that, and then beyond that, if they, just like you were saying, if they keep doing all their own paperwork, then their business dips, and then they prospect again, and then their business dips, and they're perpetually stuck in that cycle. Right. So in looking, when you speak with a prospective client, an agent, about their business, what are some things that you look for to determine whether or not your business and having a virtual TC is what's right for them?
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story. Years ago, I met with I went into an office to do a presentation, and there was a very new agent who had not closed her first transaction yet. And she said to me, "I want to sign up." And I said, "Okay, I mean, do you have a transaction?" And she said, "No." She said, "But I looked around the office at what the successful agents were doing, and every one of them had help. I'm not in a position yet to hire somebody, and I know that I'm not, but I know that I need help once it goes under contract so I can continue to grow my business." So that's a long answer to your question, but the agent that's ready to take their business serious and make it a business and not a career, not a job. I see there's kind of two different mindsets out there in real estate. There's those that went from a job to having another job, and they treat it like a job. There's those that went from having a job or maybe a business somewhere else, and they've stepped into this, and this is now a business. And most businesses don't run very successfully with just one person. I'm a huge fan of the E-Myth. As a matter of fact, I read that E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber every year, and anybody who will listen to me, I give this book away all the time. It's the same thing in real estate as it is in any other business. So the long answer to your question is, the minute somebody's ready to have a business and not a job, it's time to start looking at having somebody help you. Now, maybe early on it's getting your kids to help put stamps on the postcards. Maybe it is hiring a virtual TC such as us or someone else. Maybe it's somebody that does your marketing, your social media, so that you can be on the phone. Anybody who's ready to have a business, it's time. Now, with respect to volume and so forth, once they get to a certain level, they outgrow us, and that's when it makes more financial sense for them to have somebody on site. What I have found over the years is that when agents get to sort of that maybe 30 plus deals a year, maybe a little bit more, some of them take on a part-time administrative assistant who works in their office, who handles some of the marketing and maybe running errands occasionally, and we still support them in their TC services. Because we're always at our desk during business hours. Their part-time person isn't. So we're able to help support them with that. Yeah.
Yes, that's something we see too. Bullseye Hiring, at this point, when we do a search for an administrative professional, we only do full-time administrative people. So sometimes there is where we reach a gap in service where they need a part-time person, or what might be best is someone who's virtual, who can do a certain set of tasks that they can assign and follow up on. So as an agent, they're learning to delegate and follow up. So let's talk about the relationship of having someone who works virtually for you, because we shared before the Hangout, I recently spoke to a client and also spoke to a prospective client this week who are both considering having virtual staff, but they're scared and it's awkward and they have a lot of questions. So we could consider them to be either fears or objections, depending on how you look at it from the sales cycle, in terms of how can we help reassure agents and help build their skills with expectations for what is it like to be in communication with a virtual TC. What is that like for agents with your company?
Well, there's a couple of things there I want to touch on. First of all, even an agent who has a TC in their office, they're not going to see that TC all the time. They're going to be on the phone. They're going to be out. So even being in close physical proximity doesn't mean that every time they need something or have a question or a concern that they're going to walk into an office and ask that person. So we're all used to the email technology and instant messaging or text messaging or even picking up the phone, which is one of my favorite devices, and getting an answer to a question then. But how does as an individual, as an agent, get over the fear of that? I'll be honest with you, and to sort of toot our own horn, we have a company in place. We're not just one transaction coordinator. So what I promise to the individuals that work with us is that my team is all virtual, and we've been very successful at managing and growing a team virtually for many, many years. But anytime they have any question or concern, they come to me. They've always got somebody else they can reach out to. The other part of that is that many of them are worried, you're right, that how will I know if things are getting done, and how will I be able to communicate with them? They're communicating with them just like they would in any other setting. There's the telephone. All of our TCs are sitting at their desk ready to take calls, working business hours. They're instant messaging or text messaging or email or what have you. And we also provide the ability for the agents to be able to see every step of the way what we have going on. And again, like we talked about earlier, it's just regular communication with them to reassure them and to train them to delegate. Many of them aren't so good at delegating. They have it in their mind they want to do it, but they're just not really skilled at it. So our girls, our coordinators, teach them what they can and can't do and encourage them to let them do the things that they have retained us to do.
So I've got a question for you, Michelle. You mentioned text messaging and instant messaging and staying in contact with those people is really important. Are there any systems or software that you use to stay in touch with the virtual assistants?
With my team, well, we're using Google Hangouts on a regular basis. Our team, I can, as a manager, I can see the workflow that they're doing because I have access to all of their email. I can also, as a manager, be able to look at the transactions that they're processing and see where they are. And, if an agent had a question, be able to check on that or be able to help them. If one of my coordinators needs to leave for the afternoon or even take a day off, the work doesn't fall back on the agent. Our team will take care of it. Somebody will fill in for that agent or that coordinator from that individual's email and telephone. So it's sort of seamless, and it doesn't confuse people when their coordinator comes back.
Great.
I had a similar question, Scott, to go a little bit deeper for the agents in the audience. What is some of the transaction management software that you use that is also looked at by the agent?
Yes.
So what are some of the things that you use in that regard?
What we personally use here as a company is a software called Easy Coordinator. It's a very simple platform, but we found it really it fit the needs that we have for us to be able to do the processes that we do and to also be able to share that with our agents. But many of our agents also are part of offices that require that they have their documents uploaded to a certain website or a certain software site to keep them in compliance. Yes. Our coordinators are trained on probably a dozen different softwares such as those and are able to handle that part of the process for the agents as well.
So things like Top Producer, Wise Agent, Sky Slope, Paperless Pipeline,
exactly, Dot Loop,
Juggler, Realty Commander, right? All those kind of things. Dot Loop, E-Edge.
Yeah. So if from a compliance standpoint, we will help keep them in compliance. I can't manage the transaction in there because the logistics of looking in 15 different software programs every day just makes my head hurt. But we will upload stuff there to make sure that the agents are in compliance, because most offices, the agents won't get paid if they're not in compliance, and who wants to do this for free?
Right. This is way too much work to do for free.
Amen.
The agents work very hard, so we're happy to support them in all those ways.
Absolutely.
So that's all right. That's great information, because I know that's a question that comes up, is that they each have a unique software, and then how would someone who's not in my office, who's not on the computer in my office, be able to participate in that? So you have a bridge to be able to do that. That's great.
Thank you.
In terms of how so trust was one of the other topics that we wanted to talk about, around being able to stay in touch or know what had gotten done, where the transaction was in terms of deadlines. So how do virtual TCs build trust with the agents that they work with?
One of the best ways is we copy them on all of our correspondence. Every email that we send out, we copy them on it. It doesn't mean that they need to get involved in any part of that email that goes out, but what happens is they're able to sort of read the story as it unfolds without writing the story. And they're kind of able to read along and see what's happening. The other thing that helps build trust with the agents, between the agent and the coordinator, is we recommend a weekly telephone call. And we recommend that they set it like they would a coaching call or any other special appointment that they have in their business. And they stick to it. We're going to commit to it. We're going to be here. We're ready to take their call. And during that telephone call, it's 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes. We go through the files we have. We get a little bit of backstory sometimes from them. Maybe this buyer is an older buyer and doesn't do email very often unless you call them and tell them to pick up the email. Little backstory information, but we're also able to let the agents know any questions that they have. We'll answer them. We'll get our questions answered. And, it's like any other relationship. Communication is the only way to build trust. Communication.
Nice. I appreciate that. When you and I have exchanged the Google Hangout invitations,
yes.
One of the things that was attached to yours is that you're also hiring,
yes.
looking for more virtual coordinators, transaction coordinators to work with you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the criteria because we also look for transaction coordinators who are going to work in someone's office. And what are some of the criteria that you look for in the virtual transaction coordinators that work with you?
Location is not as important as dedication.
Okay.
Where they are is not that big of a deal. I've got people in 4 different states here working for us. Experience, though. Have they worked in a title company or worked for a real estate agent as a transaction coordinator in the past? And I'm not just talking 1 year, 2 years experience. We're talking multiple years experience. Do they have any experience maybe working from home, or why is it that they want to work from home? I'll tell you, I interview some people every once in a while who will tell me, I'm sick of going to work. I want to work at home. And that's like a big red flag for me because until I win the lottery, I got to work. And so going to work, this is just like any other job. We treat it like any other job. We're here at our desk, and we look for people that are dedicated. Experience. That's really what it boils down to. What we do is so hard for me to bottle up and train somebody on how to do it, even though I wrote a book on this topic. To walk somebody through this, 20 years of experience in my head, I can't even fathom how I could do that. But what I can do is take what they know and put it into our system and train them to do it in a way that we know will make the agents that we work with very satisfied.
And for the transaction coordinators that our clients, that agents want to put in their office, many times they want someone who already has 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience, and there are more jobs than there are candidates of that caliber. So then we're also left with what are the transferable skills from someone who's worked in escrow, in title, in mortgage, in loan processing, who's been in a real estate office and been exposed to contracts but maybe not done all of the processing. They may not have a license, but they're willing to get a license. But some of the characteristics that we see as consistent that show us if they have some amount of experience that could transfer to this role, this candidate has a high attention to detail. They are very systematized in their thinking, in the way they like to follow procedure, that they are problem solvers, but they have a cautious element to taking action and just reacting to something. And if they also have the ability to anticipate what might turn into a problem, that is worth its weight in gold for any of the assistants in any position in administration that we hire. Agents tell me they can't wait until their assistant can anticipate their needs or be able to see around the corner on a transaction like, oh, that might not work out. We might want to do something in advance and get ready for that, because that so changes the dynamic from putting out fires to getting prepared for a really smooth closing. Because let's face it, the agent has gone through all kinds of hoops and mountains and valleys to get the sale.
Yeah.
And now, between the pending and closing time frame, all kinds of potholes and windstorms can happen, right? That takes all of that work that was done in the beginning, particularly if it's one of your listings that is being sold.
Yeah.
Or I guess maybe even if it's a buyer that you've been working with over time, and now finally they have their dream house under contract, and you know, someone didn't know to have a power of attorney, and someone didn't, you know, they relieved a contingency before the appraisal came in, or
Right.
you know,
Right.
those little things that if the transaction coordinator doesn't understand the repercussions of some of the terms or the paperwork and the deadlines, then the whole deal can, even if it closes, but it closes with kind of a sour note on it, is such a shame, because all these weeks or months of work is tainted by those things that can happen, and they can happen, and it is sort of a delicate process. So the person who is really a stellar transaction coordinator that I have seen in my career is someone who is really grounded and who can handle the chaos of that with as much poise and grace and attention to detail, and looking out for anticipating what might happen, getting counsel from the agent about how they want to handle something, but being able to really shepherd that process through, because a really sweet closing turns into referrals, right? Turns into a client for life, turns into repeat business, turns into that reputation where someone says, wow, you know, this was really such a great experience. I want to work with this agent again. And that's the kind of transactions that we want them to be able to have, preferably hundreds of times a year.
Right, right. You know, it's funny. That's one of the things that I say to agents, that, you know, we want, when this is finished, for your buyer or seller to have just such a wow experience. Because now as the agent, you're able to communicate with them in a whole different way. Yes. You're not the nag. That's my job. You're not nagging them for a document. You're not nagging them to schedule something. You're not doing that. You're the professional. So you're able to have a different kind of a conversation with your client. So we say to them, our goal is us working together, the agent and us, to be able to wow them in such a way that when the transaction is finished, they can't, their buyer and seller, when somebody asks them, how did it go? Because most people are looking for dirt, right? They're looking for like the Jerry Springer kind of a transaction, because we've all seen and heard those, right? That's a whole nother book I'm going to write. But anyway, back to that. What I'm getting at is that when that buyer or seller is asked that question, we want them to be able to say nothing but, you know, this was great. My agent she kept me informed. She had a team member. I could always get information. I always felt in the loop. Yeah, here's her card. It was a great experience. Because moving is not like buying new shoes. Like, you know, that's between you and maybe who you share it with. But when you buy a house or sell a house, that's huge, and it is like you're like a walking billboard, and you're either going to give good information or a good referral or a bad referral, and we want to be part of helping them create that good referral.
All right, ladies. Well, we have a couple minutes left. Real quickly, we covered what you need to look for when you are hiring an administrative assistant, whether virtually or in-house. We spoke about where your business needs to be to start thinking about hiring virtual assistants, and we talked about how to build the trust between you and the virtual assistant when they're not in your office. Is there anything else that somebody that is thinking about adding a virtual assistant to their team should think about when they're going through that process?
You know, the number one thing I can say is that it doesn't take much of your time to discuss it with someone in our office to find out if we would be a good fit for you, or to find out if somebody else who provides a service similar to ours would be a good fit for you. If you're in a place where, if you're not happy with your business the way that it is, or you're not happy with your personal life, and you're ready to, have a little more time for your family, a hobby, something that you volunteer with, then it's probably time to pick up the phone, or at least do a little bit of research and see what you can do to bring someone in that can help support you to free up some of that time so that you can do other things. Maybe you're not even looking to grow your business. You're just looking to reclaim some life.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And for anybody that is interested in talking to you, Michelle, and figuring out how your company may be able to help them, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Just hop over to our website, Online TMC. There's a request for a proposal page, and click on that. Let us know how to reach you. We'll reach out and be happy to answer any questions that you have on how we might be able to be of assistance.
All right. And Kathleen, if anybody has any questions for you following the Hangout, how would they be able to get in contact with you?
They can also go to our website, bullseyehiring.com, and our phone number is 1-844-447-4641, which spells 844-HIRING-1. And I wanted to also say to Michelle, I have been in communication with Michelle for some time. She has always been professional, responsive. She has written a book. She writes great newsletters and articles. She's very educational and open to in a consulting way about whether or not she's the right fit for you. And so I really recommend her as someone to at least explore the opportunity and option with if that's something that agents are considering.
Great.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the Hangout, ladies. Join us again next month for another episode of the Bullseye Hiring Hangout with Kathleen, and we'll bring on another guest. We'll go over some more topics, and we look forward to seeing you there. Yes, go ahead. Say who it is.
So Patrick Ferry is going to join us. Patrick Ferry is both an agent on a team in the San Diego area, with Kai Bonsack and his wife Carly, but he's also a coach for the Tom Ferry coaching organization. So he's going to be able to talk about having a staff as an agent on a team of 3, and also in working with top producers as a coach, and what he sees in terms of agents having a staff and what they encounter.
Awesome.
Great. So if you would like more updates about these Hangouts, like Bullseye Hiring on Facebook, and follow them on Google+, and you'll receive the updates about when we are going to have the Hangouts. We look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you again, ladies.
Thank you. Bye.